Story 1. My brother demanded that I give him my house because he had a baby. Now he's calling me a traitor. So last week, my brother Mark showed up at my house out of the blue, holding his newborn in one arm and a folder of papers in the other. He said he had something important to discuss. I assumed he needed advice about the baby, or maybe just a break from being a new dad. I couldn't have been more wrong. Right as I offered him coffee, he cut me off mid-sentence and said, "You don't need this house anymore. You should give it to us. We've got a baby now." At first I actually laughed. I thought it was one of his weird jokes, but then I realized he wasn't joking. His face was dead serious. I just stared at him, waiting for a punchline that never came when I asked him what he was talking about. He launched into this long-winded explanation about how he and his wife, Jessica, are barely making ends meet with their tiny apartment. Apparently their landlord raised the rent and they were struggling to cover expenses with the new baby, and because I'm single and financially stable, he decided I should give him my house. Let me explain. This house was left to me by my grandparents when they passed a couple of years ago. It's not a mansion or anything, but it's my dream home. I grew up visiting it every summer and had a lot of memories tied to it when it became mine. I poured almost all my savings into renovations, new kitchen, new floors, even updated the plumbing. It's not just a house to me, it's my safe space. I tried to be calm and rational. I told Mark, "I'm really sorry you're struggling, but this house was left to me for a reason. I've worked hard to make it my own," but he wouldn't drop it. He said, "You don't have a family. It's selfish to keep this all to yourself, when we have a child to think about." Jessica, who apparently had been sitting in the car outside, came in at that point. She started chiming in about how families should help each other and how they had already planned out how to make this space work for their growing family. Planned out, she even had the audacity to suggest I could rent a nice apartment somewhere since I'm just one person. I was dumbfounded. I told them flat out, "This is my home. I'm not giving it up." That's when things got nasty. Jessica started crying. I swear it felt fake, and said something like, "I knew she wouldn't understand. She's always been selfish." Mark got more aggressive and accused me of hoarding resources. He actually said it's not fair that you have all this, while we're struggling to get by at this point. I was so angry. I could barely keep my voice steady. I asked them to leave, but Mark dropped his folder of papers on my coffee table and said, "Think about it. It's what's best for the family." When they finally left, I sat there staring at the folder. It was filled with documents, suggested timelines for moving out a budget for how they'd maintain the house, and even a drafted letter to my HOA informing them of the change in ownership. I couldn't believe the level of entitlement they had planned. This like it was a done deal the next day. It got worse. My parents called me, and guess what? They're on Mark's side. My mom said, "You don't need such a big place. Sweetheart, Mark has a baby now, and it's only fair to prioritize the family." My dad said something like, "You're single. You have flexibility." They don't. I tried to explain my side, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Every time I said no, they made me feel like I was some greedy villain. What hurt the most was when my mom said, "I thought we raised you better than this." Like I'm the one being unreasonable for a couple of days. I actually started doubting myself. Was I being selfish? Should I just let them have the house? But then I remembered everything I've been through to make this place mine. The late nights, scraping wallpaper, the weekends spent installing cabinets, the years I saved every extra penny to make it happen. I realized it wasn't just about the house. It was about how little they respected my boundaries or my hard work. When I told Mark again that I wouldn't be giving them my house, he completely flipped. He said I was tearing the family apart and even called me heartless. He stormed off, and later that night, Jessica posted a long dramatic Facebook rant about toxic relatives who turn their backs on family in their time of need. She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious who she was talking about. Some of my extended family have already started messaging me, asking why I won't help poor Mark and Jessica. Now I feel like I'm being ganged up on from every angle. I don't know how to handle this. It feels like my entire family is against me and all, because I said no to something completely ridiculous. The final straw this morning, I got a text from Mark saying, "If you don't do the right thing, don't expect to be part of our lives anymore, and that includes your nephew." We update, if you thought my brother demanding my house was bad, buckle up because things have taken a turn I never saw coming. I didn't think it could get any more ridiculous. I was wrong after my brother Mark and his wife Jessica stormed out of my house and posted their passive-aggressive Facebook rant. I thought the drama might start to die down. I figured they'd eventually realize how insane their demand was and move on. But no. Instead, I came home from work a few days later to find an envelope taped to my front door inside a notice of legal action. Yes, you read that. Right. Mark and Jessica are trying to sue me for my own house. At first, I thought it was a prank. Who does that? But as I read through the documents, my stomach dropped. They're claiming that the house was part of the family estate and that I unfairly claimed it without consideration for their needs. They're demanding that I either sign over the deed or sell the house and split the proceeds with them. I was in complete disbelief. My grandparents left this house to me in their will, clearly explicitly with my name. On it I had nothing to do with their decision, but apparently Mark and Jessica think they're entitled to override that because they have a baby, and I don't. The next day I called my lawyer. I was still trying to wrap my head around the fact that my own brother would go this far. My lawyer thankfully reassured me that their case was flimsy. At best, the will is ironclad, and there's no legal basis for their claim. Still, just knowing I'd have to deal with this mess made my blood boil. How dare they drag me into court over something that isn't even up for debate? What really pushed me over the edge, though, was when I found out who was bankrolling their lawsuit. My parents. They've been helping Mark and Jessica pay for a lawyer to come after me when I confronted them. My mom tried to justify it, saying, "We're just trying to make things fair for everyone." Fair. What about the years I spent saving and working to make this house livable? What about the fact that I didn't ask for this house? It was given to me. My dad was no better. He told me, "We just don't want to see Mark and Jessica struggle. You're doing fine on your own." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told them flat out that they were enabling Mark's entitlement and that I'd never forgive them if they kept pushing this. My mom started crying, saying, "I don't know what's happened to this family." Yeah, Mom, neither do I, as if all that wasn't enough. Jessica has taken her campaign against me to social media. She's been posting all these SOB stories about how heartless I am for hoarding the family home, while their baby is crammed into a tiny apartment. She even posted pictures of their apartment, making it look worse than it is, along with a caption, like, "All we want is a safe space for our baby. Is that too much to ask?" The comments are full of people sympathizing with her, saying things like, "Your sister should be ashamed of herself, and family is supposed to support each other." I tried to ignore it, but then I started getting messages from extended family members, cousins, aunts, even people I haven't spoken to in years. They're all saying I should do the right thing and help out. Some of them even accused me of being ungrateful for the inheritance. It's like they've completely forgotten that this is my house at this point. I feel like I'm losing my mind every time I try to explain the situation. I met with guilt trips and accusations. It's not just the lawsuit or the social media drama. It's the fact that my own family has turned against me. I feel like I'm fighting a battle I never asked to be part of. But then things took an even darker turn while going through the legal documents again. I noticed something odd buried in the paperwork was a mention of a family agreement that I supposedly signed stating that the house was meant to be shared. I was confused because I've never signed anything like that. When I showed it to my lawyer, he confirmed what I was already suspecting. The signature was forged. I was livid. Who would stoop that low? My lawyer said it was likely Mark and Jessica, but proving it would take time. Meanwhile, they've been telling everyone I'm dragging out the legal process just to spite them, as if that wasn't enough. I recently found out that Jessica has been lying about their financial situation. A friend of mine saw her at a high-end baby store dropping hundreds on designer nursery furniture. She's also been posting photos of their struggles on Facebook, right alongside pictures of fancy dinners and spa days, so much for barely making ends meet. I'm starting to wonder if this was their plan all along. Did they see me as an easy target? Did they think I'd just roll over and hand them the house to avoid conflict? The thought makes me sick. I've always tried to be there for my family, but this feels like a betrayal. I can't come back from the lawsuit is still ongoing, but my lawyer is confident we'll win. That said, the damage has already been done. My relationship with my family feels broken. Beyond repair, every time I think about what they've put me through, I feel this mix of anger and sadness that I can't even describe, and the cherry on top. Mark showed up at my house again yesterday. He had the nerve to say, "You're going to regret this when the baby grows up. They'll know what kind of aunt you really are." I didn't even dignify it with a response. I just closed the door. I don't know how this will end, but one thing's for sure. I'm not giving up my house if that makes me the villain in their story. So be it final update. This isn't just about the house anymore. This is about a family secret that's completely shattered. Everything I thought I knew about my life. To recap, my brother Mark and his wife Jessica are suing me for my house, the one my grandparents left to me in their will. My parents are siding with them and even funding their legal fees. Things have been tense to say the least, but I was confident that the case would fall apart since the house is legally mine. What I didn't expect was for this fight to unearth a secret that would change everything. It started a few weeks ago. My lawyer had requested some family documents to further disprove Mark and Jessica's claim that the house was part of a family inheritance meant to be shared. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was just standard procedure. But when the documents arrived, I noticed something strange. There was a file I'd never seen before, labeled with my grandparents' names, and dated decades before I was born. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside were letters, legal agreements, and a handwritten note from my grandmother. What I read made my stomach drop. It turns out Mark isn't my full brother. He's my half-brother, apparently. Before my parents got married, my mom had an affair with another man. Mark's biological father, my grandparents knew about it and were furious, but they agreed to keep the secret for the sake of family unity. The letters revealed that Mark, biological father, had left a significant sum of money to my mom when Mark was born, with the understanding that it would be used for Mark's benefit. My grandparents used part of that money to buy the house that eventually became mine. I sat there in shock, rereading the letters over and over. It felt like the ground beneath me had shifted my entire life. I believed we were a normal family, well, as normal as families get. But this was a betrayal on so many levels. My mom had kept this secret for decades, and now it was coming to light in the ugliest way possible. At first, I didn't know what to do with the information. Should I confront my mom? Tell Mark? I decided to sit on it for a few days while I processed everything. But of course, secrets like this have a way of exploding on their own. Last week, during another heated argument with Mark, he blurted out, "You don't even know the whole story. You're not the only one Grandma and Grandpa screwed over." I froze. I asked him what he meant, and that's when he dropped the bomb. He knew he wasn't my full brother. He's known for years, apparently. Our mom told him the truth when he was a teenager. But instead of feeling betrayed by her, he felt like he was owed something more. Like the money his biological father left was rightfully his. That's why he feels entitled to the house in his mind. The house was bought with his inheritance, so it should go to him. I was speechless. I asked him why he didn't just say something earlier if he felt that way, and he said, "Because I knew you'd never give it up willingly." He admitted that the lawsuit, the forged documents, even the social media campaign, were all part of a plan to pressure me into handing over the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just entitlement. This was calculated manipulation, and my parents were in on it when I confronted them. They didn't even deny it. My mom said we just wanted to make things right for Mark. I asked her why she thought it was okay to lie to me, to let me believe this house was truly mine, only to turn around and help Mark try to take it. Her response, "We thought you'd understand. You have your whole life ahead of you. Mark needs this more." That was the moment I realized I couldn't trust them anymore. They didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as an obstacle to Mark's happiness. I told them I wanted nothing to do with any of them, until this mess was resolved. Since then, I've been going through a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness. I felt it all, but I've also started to feel a strange sense of relief. At least now I know the truth. I know why my family has treated me like an outsider, why they've always bent over backward for Mark while expecting me to fend for myself. It doesn't make it hurt any less, but it gives me clarity. As for the lawsuit, my lawyer is preparing to counter their claims with everything we've uncovered. The forged documents alone are enough to sink their case, and I'm considering pressing charges for fraud. Mark and Jessica are doubling down. Though they've been telling everyone I stole Mark's birthright, some of our extended family has turned against me, but others have started to see through their lies. The house is still mine, and I'm not letting it go, but the cost of keeping it has been higher than I ever imagined. My relationship with my parents and Mark is completely destroyed. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive them for what they've done, but one thing's for sure, I'm done being the family scapegoat. Story 2. My family always loved my sister more than me, So I got back at them by dating her friend. They said I wasn't good enough and told me to leave her, but I said no. My sister tried to break us up, but her plan went really wrong. When I was born, something was different about me. My parents, David and Caroline, never let me forget it. When I was 4 years old, doctors said I had less of a certain hormone than other boys. My parents decided to use my big sister to fix me. I remember one Christmas when I was 12 and Jess was 15. We both wanted new bikes. She got exactly what she asked for. It was bright purple and shiny with big wheels. What did I get? A pink shirt that said Jess's little brother on it. My parents thought if they made me feel bad about myself, I would somehow get better. They thought being mean to me would make me stronger. But it didn't work. The meaner they were, the sadder and more worried I became. After a while, they stopped caring about helping me. They just liked Jess more. One time, Jess got a B- on her report card. My parents put up a huge sign on our house. It said, "Our daughter got a B- with her picture on it." When I came home with all A's, they didn't care. They actually got mad and messed up my room because I didn't get A+. Nothing they did surprised me after that. When I got into a good college with money to help pay for it, they called me a failure. They said I should have gotten all my college paid for. Jess barely passed high school and said she wanted to take a year off before college. That year turned into 5 years. My parents threw her a party and bought her a new computer for her art projects. There was one good thing that happened. I moved out as soon as I could. I worked many jobs while going to school to pay for everything myself. One year, I couldn't afford to come home for Thanksgiving. My dad said, "I guess you don't care about family." Even when I didn't live with them, family dinners were awful. They would say mean things like, "Still at that beginner job. Jess is going to start her own store. She's so smart with business." When I graduated from college, they came late. The first thing my dad said was, "4 years for that piece of paper? Seems like a waste of time." What made it worse was watching them love Jess so much. She wore a fancy dress to my graduation just to get attention. I still tried to be nice to Jess. She was my sister, but she didn't care about me. When I called her, she either didn't answer or turned everything into a contest. If I got a better job, she suddenly had an amazing chance coming up. If I started dating someone, she would say she was in love. Once I hadn't heard from her in months, I called to tell her good news. "Hey Jess, guess what? I got promoted." She waited before saying, "Okay, well, I just got offered a job at this amazing new company. I'll probably make more money than you ever will." That job never existed. When I finally got my dream job after working really hard for years, I told my family at dinner, "Guys, I just got my dream job." And okay, but did you hear about Jess? My mom cut me off. She met a rich businessman who knows everyone. That man was Dwight. He wasn't a rich businessman. He sold paper at a regular company, but my parents talked about him like he was super important. Their wedding cost a lot of money. My parents paid for all of it. I was still paying back my school loans. Then I met one of Jess's friends. What happened next changed everything in our family. Jess was really mad about it. I can't tell you everything in this short story. To see what happened, click the link below. We liked each other right away. Josephine was everything I wanted. She was smart, funny, kind, and beautiful. We met at one of Jess's parties. She and Dwight moved to new houses almost every year. My parents always helped pay for bigger and better places. Josephine was standing alone by the books. She looked like she didn't want to be there, just like me. She had brown hair to her shoulders, green eyes, and a smile that made me forget what I was going to say. "Don't like parties?" she asked, drinking her wine. "Don't like Jess's world," I said before I could stop myself. She didn't get upset. She laughed for real. "Oh, you're the brother I heard about, the one with the boring life. We talked in that corner all night. We talked about books and movies we both liked. By the end of the night, I had her phone number. We planned to go out the next weekend. When we started dating, my parents said mean things. They said she was too good for me and wondered why she liked me. She's so fancy and has been so many places. My mother said after meeting Josephine, "It's weird that she likes someone so plain." The way she said plain made it sound really bad. My father was more direct. "Does she know how much money you make? Women like her usually want more." Jess suddenly wanted to know everything about my life. She kept asking about Josephine. She would call out of nowhere to catch up. But every talk was really about Josephine's job, her family, what she liked to do. Josephine said she might move to New York for work. Jess said once, "I never told her that. That would be hard for you two, right?" Back then, I was just happy she cared about my life. I should have known something was wrong. Josephine and I moved in together after dating for a year. It was great. We both had good jobs. We went on trips. We talked about our future. Our apartment wasn't fancy. It had one bedroom in an okay neighborhood, but it was ours. We painted the walls ourselves. We put together furniture while laughing at the confusing directions. We made a home that felt safe and happy. "I never thought I could feel this good," Josephine told me one night. We were sitting on our used couch, eating takeout and watching TV. "My parents always wanted more and bigger things. This is enough. You're enough. I finally thought I might get the life I always wanted, a good job, someone who loved me, maybe kids someday. I planned to ask Josephine to marry me at home. I saved money for months to buy the ring. It wasn't huge, but it was pretty. It had a green stone that matched her eyes. I hid it in her favorite dessert. I practiced making chocolate cake many times in secret. When she found the ring, she started crying happy tears. "Yes," she said, before I could even ask. "Yes, yes, yes." We planned to take our time with the wedding. We weren't in a hurry. We had our whole lives together. Or that's what I thought. When we told my family we were getting married, they acted weird. Mom smiled a fake smile and said, "How nice," in a mean way. Dad just grunted and said, "We'll see," before watching TV again. Jess acted the strangest. She said, "Congratulations." But her smile was scary, like she was planning something. I thought I was just being nervous. "Let me see the ring," Jess said, grabbing Josephine's hand. She looked at it like she was judging it. "Oh, it's cute, small. I guess that's what you like." Later, I heard my mother tell Josephine, "Don't rush, dear. You're still young. There are lots of other chances for someone like you." She meant I wasn't good enough. The next year was busy with wedding planning and work. Josephine and I both worked long hours to save money. We wanted to buy a house too. We didn't see each other as much, but I thought it was just for now. Every couple has hard times, right? We stopped having date nights as much. We just had quick dinners before one of us had to work late or sleep. When I said we should go away for a weekend together, Josephine seemed unsure. "I don't know if I can leave work right now," she said. She didn't look at me. "My big project needs me." I understood. We were both working on our careers. "Sometimes you have to give things up. We'll make it work," I told her, holding her hand. "After the wedding, we can take that trip we talked about." Looking back, I missed some big clues. Josephine was always on her phone. She would hide text messages and laugh nervously. She said they were just work stuff. She started going out more with friends. She came home late smelling like wine and men's cologne, but I trusted her completely. I never thought she might be cheating. I really never thought she'd cheat with my sister's husband. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. Her side of the bed was empty. I walked to the living room, still sleepy. She was on the couch whispering into her phone. When she saw me, she jumped like I caught her doing something bad. "Sorry, did I wake you?" she asked. She put her phone away fast, just talking to Sarah about the wedding dresses at 2 a.m. I nodded and went back to bed. I pushed away the worry in my head. Sarah was going to be in our wedding and she was always forgetting things. Maybe it was true. Another warning sign. Josephine suddenly wanted to spend time with Jess and Dwight. She would bring them up when we talked. She wanted to go on double dates and have family dinners before she tried to avoid them. "We should have dinner with Jess and Dwight this weekend," she would say. "I saw Dwight at the coffee shop near my work yesterday. He told me about a new restaurant. It was weird that Dwight would be at a coffee shop 30 minutes from his job, but I didn't ask about it. I was happy Josephine was trying with my family. They never tried with her. About 3 months ago, Josephine started acting different. She was moody and mad a lot. She felt sick to her stomach all the time. I got excited. I thought she might be having a baby. We hadn't planned it, but we talked about having kids someday. I started dreaming about helping her when she felt sick in the mornings. I thought about what colors to paint a baby's room. One morning, I found her throwing up in the bathroom. I held her hair back and rubbed her back. "Should we get a test?" I asked. I tried not to sound too excited. She looked at me with scared eyes. "No, I mean it's probably just a stomach bug," but she kept feeling sick. She stopped drinking wine at dinner. The smell of coffee made her feel sick. She took lots of naps. I started leaving baby books where she could see them. I looked up information about vitamins for pregnant women. I even started looking for the best baby doctors near us. "You'd be such a great mom," I told her one night when we were watching TV. "Our kid would be so lucky to have you." She started crying and ran to the bathroom. I thought it was just pregnancy feelings. I gave her space. Then one night, she sat me down. She was crying hard. She told me the truth. She was having a baby, but it wasn't mine. I was shocked. We hadn't been together much lately because we were busy. But I never thought this would happen. When I asked who the father was, she cried harder and whispered, "It's Jess's husband." My whole world fell apart. Everything I thought I knew was gone. I couldn't breathe or think. I just felt hurt everywhere. "Dwight?" I managed to say. "My sister's husband, Dwight." Josephine nodded. Her face was all red from crying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." "How long?" My voice sounded strange to me. It was flat and empty. 3 months, she said, looking at the floor. "It started at your parents' anniversary party. I remembered that party clearly. It was my parents' 40th anniversary. They spent months planning a big party. Josephine looked beautiful in a blue dress. I was so proud to be with her. I remembered she left for almost an hour. She said the room was too hot and she needed fresh air. Dwight was gone at the same time. I didn't think anything about it. Then Josephine tried to explain while crying. She said it started at our engagement party. Dwight cornered her and told her she was making a mistake by marrying me. He made her feel bad about herself. He said he could give her things I couldn't. It wasn't just one time. They had been seeing each other for months. He said you'd never be able to give me the life I deserved, she cried. That I was wasting my time with you. "And you believed him?" I asked. I couldn't believe it. After 6 years together, you believed what he said about me. "Not at first," she said. "But he kept trying. He would text me little things. He would say I deserved better. He would point out how your family treated you. He said they might treat our kids the same way. My stomach felt sick at how he tricked her. So what? He was just worried about you. This was all to help you." "No, of course not," she whispered. "He made me feel special and wanted. He said Jess didn't understand him. He said they were just like roommates now. The same old lies cheaters always tell. I couldn't believe Josephine fell for it. I couldn't believe she hurt me this badly." "Where did you meet?" I asked. I needed to know everything. His office, mostly. Sometimes hotels if we could meet for lunch. She was crying hard now. Her makeup was running down her face. Once at their house when Jess was visiting your parents. Every word hurt more. She said she went running alone on weekends. All lies. "Does Jess know?" I asked. I suddenly thought about my sister. Josephine shook her head. "No. I don't think so. Dwight said he would tell her when the time was right." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. "When the time is right? When is the right time to tell your wife you've been sleeping with her brother's fiancé and got her pregnant?" I told Josephine to leave that night. I couldn't look at the woman who hurt me so badly. She begged me to forgive her. She said it was a mistake and she loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she lied to me while wearing my ring. "Please," she cried while packing a bag. "We can work through this. People make mistakes. I love you, not him. If you loved me, you wouldn't have slept with my sister's husband," I said. The words tasted bad in my mouth. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me for months while planning our wedding. I was going to end it," she said. "The baby wasn't planned. We were careful." "Not careful enough," I said coldly. "Get out. You have 30 minutes to take what you need. Everything else goes in the trash." She tried to touch my arm. "Where will I go?" "I don't know, Josephine. Maybe Dwight's office. You know it well. Or maybe one of those hotels you liked so much. It's not my problem anymore." After Josephine left, I called Dwight. I don't remember exactly what I said. I was too angry and hurt. He tried to act like it wasn't a big deal at first. He said it was just a hammered mistake that meant nothing. When I kept asking questions, he got defensive. He said, "Well, maybe if you were a better boyfriend, she wouldn't have come to me." "Are you kidding me?" I yelled into the phone. "You're blaming me for sleeping with my fiancée? You have some nerve." "Look, man, I'm sorry it happened this way," he said. He didn't sound sorry at all, but Josephine and I connected in a way you two never did. She needs someone who matches her dreams. And that's you. I laughed without humor. A regular salesman living off my parents' money. What can you give her and this baby? You've never done anything on your own. He got mean then. You've always been jealous of what Jess and I have. Now I have Josephine too. Think about that while you're alone in that sad apartment. I got so mad. I drove straight to their house. I wanted to do something I'd probably regret. The drive went by fast. I don't remember stopping at lights or turning. All I could think about was facing Dwight in person. I wanted him to feel some of the pain I felt. When I got there, my parents were already there. Dwight had called them first. He told them some story about Josephine coming after him and how sorry he was. Of course, they believed him. They always do. I walked in without knocking. They were all sitting in the living room like they were waiting for me. My mother was patting Dwight's shoulder to comfort him. My father stood with his arms crossed, looking serious. Jess wasn't there. "Well, look who finally came," my father said. He sounded disappointed in me. "Want to explain why you're threatening your brother-in-law?" "Brother?" I couldn't believe it. "You mean the man who's been sleeping with my fiancée for months? The man who got her pregnant while married to your daughter?" My mother gasped. "Josephine's pregnant. Oh, Dwight, you poor thing. What a mess that girl made. I couldn't believe what I heard. Are you serious right now?" "He cheated on your daughter with my fiancé. How is only Josephine wrong here?" Mom started talking about forgiving and family. Dad stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me, not in Dwight. I tried to tell them what really happened, but they wouldn't listen. They kept saying I needed to forgive Dwight and help Josephine with her pregnancy because family comes first. "You don't understand what Dwight is going through," my mother said. "Jess hasn't been very loving lately. Men have needs." "Are you really making excuses for him cheating on your daughter?" I asked. I couldn't believe it. "Where is Jess? Does she know what her husband did?" My father cleared his throat. "Jess is upstairs resting. She's upset, but she wants to work it out. That's what grown-ups do. They don't run around making threats." Dwight agreed to go to marriage counseling. My mother added like this fixed everything. "He's taking responsibility. That's more than you're doing." "Me? What did I do except get hurt by everyone I trusted?" "You've always been dramatic," my father sighed. "Always making everything about you. This needs to be handled carefully, not with your usual tantrums." Dwight sat there looking sorry for himself. He pretended to be the sorry husband. "I said sorry to Jess and she forgave me. Josephine and I made a mistake, but now we have to think about the baby." That's when I lost it. Years of holding in my feelings exploded. I told them exactly what I thought about their twisted love. I told them how they always loved Jess and her husband more than me. They never took my side or helped me. I told Dwight he was dead to me. I told my parents they could have the family they always wanted because they didn't have me anymore. "You know what? I'm done," I said. My voice was quiet but angry. "Done with all of you. For 34 years I've tried to make you love me and respect me. It's never been enough. Nothing I do matters compared to what Jess does." "That's not true," my mother said weakly. "We love you both the same." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. That's a lie, and you know it. When Jess crashes a car, it's an accident. When I get straight A's, it's expected. When Jess drops out of college, she gets a party. When I graduate with honors, I get a handshake. "You've always been stronger," my father said. "You didn't need the same help Jess did." "No, you just didn't want to give it to me," I said back. "And now your favorite son-in-law got my fiancée pregnant. And I'm still the bad guy." I turned to Dwight. "Then you're pathetic. A cheating, lying coward who never worked for anything. You think you won something. Good luck with a woman who cheats on the man she's going to marry. I'm sure she'll never cheat on you." I left, ignoring their calls. I drove around for hours. I just wanted to get away from everything and everyone. When I finally got home, I had lots of missed calls and messages. Josephine begged for another chance. Dwight kept switching between saying sorry and blaming me. Most were from my parents, telling me to grow up and make up with everyone. "You're breaking this family apart by being stubborn," my mother said in a voicemail. "Josephine is having a baby and needs support, not judgment." My father was more direct. "Stop acting like a child. Come to Sunday dinner to say sorry to Dwight and fix this like a man." There were even messages from Jess which surprised me. "I forgave Dwight and you should too," she said coldly. "Josephine made a mistake, but the baby is innocent. We need to be a family." She didn't say anything about how she felt about her husband cheating. After they all left my apartment, I fell apart. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I did was sit on my couch and think about what happened. I kept going over every moment with Josephine. I kept thinking about every time Dwight came over. Where did I go wrong? What signs did I miss? Was I a bad boyfriend? These questions kept running through my head all day and night. I called in sick to work every day. I used up all my sick days and vacation time. I couldn't face anyone. I didn't want to explain what happened. I just wanted to hide. After a week, my boss called me herself. "We're worried about you," she said. "This isn't like you. Can we help?" I started crying and told her everything. She listened without saying I was wrong or right. Then she said something that surprised me. "We have an office in Seattle. You could work there for a while. Maybe being somewhere new would help. You can come back whenever you're ready." It was the first nice thing anyone had done for me in a long time. I said yes right away. That was 3 months ago. I moved to Seattle. I got a new apartment. I changed my phone number. I started seeing a therapist to help me deal with all this. But my family won't leave me alone. Even though I tried to cut them off, they found out where I work. I don't know how. Probably through my parents' friends. They started showing up at my job to try to make me talk to them. My mom waits for me in the parking lot. She cries and says I'm breaking up the family. My dad leaves mean messages on my work phone telling me to grow up and forgive Dwight. Last week, my mother was waiting by my car when I left work. "This has been going on too long," she said, standing in my way. "Josephine is 6 months pregnant now. She needs to move on, and so does Dwight." "They can move on without me," I said, trying to get around her. "How can you be so mean?" she asked. "There's a baby now. The baby didn't do anything wrong. The baby wouldn't exist if Dwight hadn't cheated with my girlfriend," I said. "That's not my fault." Then she tried to act nice. "We miss you. Your father and I want our son back." "You never wanted me before," I said. "Why do you want me now?" They even got other family members to call me. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I never talked to started calling. They all say the same thing. That family is important, and I should forgive and forget. They act like what Dwight and Josephine did was no big deal. My cousin Rick texted me. I hadn't talked to him in 5 years. He wrote, "Family stays together no matter what. Your parents are sad. You can fix this if you just forgive them." My Aunt Patty left a message trying to make me feel bad. She said, "Your poor mother can barely get out of bed. She's so worried about you. Is this how you treat your parents after everything they did for you?" I wanted to scream. What did they do for me? When did they ever care about keeping the family together? When I was growing up, feeling left out. Yesterday, I got a message from Josephine. "She's keeping the baby. She and Dwight will raise it together. My parents are excited about being grandparents. They forgot all the mean things they used to say about Josephine when she was with me." Her message was full of excuses. She said she and Dwight found real love and that this was meant to happen. She even said we could all be friends someday for the baby. "I know this isn't what we planned," she wrote, "but sometimes life changes. Dwight and I really love each other. We hope you can be happy too. The baby is a boy. We want to name him David after your dad. We'd like you to be his uncle." I couldn't believe it. The woman who cheated on me wants me to be uncle to the baby she made while cheating and naming him after my father. Now my parents will never see anything wrong with what they did. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to move far away, maybe change my name and start over where no one knows about this mess. But part of me is so mad that I want to stay and show them how wrong they are. My therapist says I need to deal with my feelings instead of running away. She also says, I have the right to stay away from my family. Your family has always ignored what you need. She told me, it's okay to stay away from people who hurt you, but staying away isn't working. They keep finding me. They keep trying to make me the bad guy for not forgiving them. The whole thing has messed up my life. I need pills to sleep. I hate being alone with my thoughts. I can't even think about dating again. The idea of trusting someone scares me too much. What if no one can love me? I asked my therapist once. What if something is wrong with me that makes people treat me this way? Nothing is wrong with you, she said. But growing up in a family like yours can make you think you don't deserve good things. Your family taught you to accept being treated badly. The good news is, you can learn new ways to think. I've also lost friends because of this. Some think I should forgive my family and move on. They think I'm being mean by staying away from them. My old roommate Tom really surprised me. He's known me for years. But he said, families are hard. Yeah, what they did was bad, but you have to move on sometime. They're still your family. I stopped talking to him after that. My family being related to me didn't stop them from hurting me. Why should I care about them? Thinking about Josephine and Dwight raising a baby together hurts so much. That could have been my baby. I know the baby didn't do anything wrong. It's not the baby's fault its parents are liars and cheaters, but I can't be happy about it. My parents keep saying I should be in the baby's life. They say I'll be an uncle. The thought makes me feel sick. How can I look at that kid and not think about how Dwight betrayed me? So Reddit, am I wrong for not forgiving my sister's husband and my ex? Am I wrong to cut off my family? I need advice on what to do next. Right now, I feel like I'm drowning. Everyone keeps lying to me and trying to make me think I'm the bad guy. Sorry this is so long. If you read all of this, thank you. Writing it all down has helped a little. I don't know what I want. Maybe just for someone to understand. Maybe just to know I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Story 3. My family thinks the local police will always protect them. They haven't met the federal agents building cases across 4 states. In my family, the men expected one daughter from each generation to live in our soundproof basement as the family punching bag. My grandfather built the room himself in 1962. He'd grown up watching his father hit his mother unconscious, watching his brothers terrorize their wives. So, he invented what he called the feminist solution. One girl, chosen at 16, would absorb all the family's violence. The chosen one wore a locked silver anklet and lived in that basement 24/7. Whenever someone felt angry, stressed, or cruel, they had a designated target. My grandfather genuinely believed this protected other women in the family from random violence. 3 generations of men had grown up with this system. My father, my uncles, my older cousins, they'd all been taught from childhood that the basement girl existed for their anger. They'd accompany their fathers downstairs, learning which strikes left marks and which didn't. By adolescence, they had their own keys. And I would have called the police, but they scared me out of it. Instead of hearing bedtime stories as a child, they'd tell me stories about the foster care system, about how if I called the police, I'd end up there, where they'd reap me to death. And it's not like the women didn't participate in the feminist solution either. My grandmother selected the victims. My mother prepared the ankle ceremonies. My aunts delivered the meals through the slot, telling younger girls this was an honor and a necessity. They believed it without the anger room, they said. Imagine how much worse things would be. I was 8 when my Aunt Sophia was chosen. I watched them lead her to the basement on her 16th birthday. Watched her parents hand over their own daughter like a sacrifice. The tradition was specific. The girl served from age 16 until death or incapacitation. Then the next was chosen immediately. No gaps allowed. My grandmother kept meticulous records. Which girl served when, for how long, their performance ratings. She showed me once, proud of the organization. When I was 13, my Aunt Sophia was replaced with Alina. Every morning, my uncle visited before work. Wednesdays were my father's scheduled time. Weekends belonged to my grandfather. The women visited too, though less frequently. All the family's frustrations funneled into that room. It was around this time that I was finally smart enough to find something that changed everything. The heating vents connected every room in the house, and through them, I realized I could hear Elena begging. I heard the scheduled visits. I heard my grandmother explaining to my 9-year-old cousin Maya that she might be blessed with selection one day. That's when I started recording everything. 6 months of evidence hidden in the vents. I recruited 8 younger cousins who didn't want to be chosen. Nina mapped the ventilation system. Vera learned to pick locks. We dropped medical supplies to Elena and documented her injuries through the grates. The breaking point came at our annual Christmas dinner. My grandmother stood with the ceremonial selection bell. Elena had served well. She announced while pointing out her multiple severe injuries. It was time to choose her replacement. Her eyes settled on 9-year-old Maya, who smiled back, not understanding. I stood up and played 6 months of recordings through hidden speakers. The room erupted, but while family members screamed and tried to stop me, Vera had already called 911. The other girls formed a protective circle as evidence flooded the room. Audio of beatings, photos of the room, documentation going back decades. My family couldn't believe I'd betray the feminist solution. Even as police led them away, they insisted the system prevented worse violence. My grandmother kept repeating, "We were protecting the family. One sacrifice to save many." But they'd been so confident in their tradition, so certain of their righteousness, they never imagined anyone would defy it. They fought until the end, hiring lawyers, claiming religious freedom, insisting the chosen girls volunteered. The arrests were quick and quiet. 17 family members were charged. That's when I truly realized how messed up our tradition really was. My family hired the best lawyers money could buy. 3 weeks later, we were in court. The judge reviewed all our evidence. Then he looked up with dead eyes. "Case dismissed," he said. I saw it then. The scar on his wrist. The same mark all the men in my family wore. The scar caught the light as Judge Harrison gathered his papers. My hands shook as I watched him stand, watched my family members embrace their lawyers with relief, flooding their faces. Elena swayed on her feet in the witness chair, her medical records scattered across the prosecutor's table like discarded trash. I grabbed the prosecutor's arm as he packed his briefcase. He yanked away without meeting my eyes, muttering something about jurisdiction issues. The bailiff ushered us toward the exit, while my grandmother smiled triumphantly from across the courtroom. My father clapped my uncle's shoulder, both men already pulling out their phones. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered around my family's legal team. I heard fragments of their statement about false accusations and troubled youth seeking attention. My cousins huddled near me, Na's small hand gripping mine so tight her nails left marks. Vera kept glancing at the courthouse doors like she expected police to burst through and fix this impossible reversal. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed with photos from my aunt's social media. My entire family celebrated at Martel's, their favorite Italian restaurant. Champagne glasses raised, my grandfather's arm around Judge Harrison's shoulders. The judge's silver bracelet glinted next to my grandfather's matching one. The caption read, "Justice prevails. Family stays strong." Elena collapsed in my apartment bathroom that night. The paramedics said her blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. As they loaded her onto the stretcher, she kept whispering about going back to the room, about how they'd make her pay for speaking up. I rode with her to the hospital, holding her hand while she drifted in and out of consciousness. The next morning brought 23 missed calls from unknown numbers. The first voicemail was just breathing. The second contained whispers about keeping family business private. By the fifth message, the voice clearly stated that some girls never learned their lessons. I changed my phone number that afternoon. 2 days passed in a blur of hospital visits and locked doors. Elena stabilized but refused to eat, convinced they'd poison her food. The younger cousin's parents had already started pulling them out of school, claiming family emergencies. Beer's mother showed up at my apartment, demanding I stop filling her daughter's head with lies. The package arrived on the 3rd morning. No return address, just my name printed in block letters. Inside, photocopied bank statements spilled across my kitchen table. Monthly transfers from my grandfather's business account to Harrison Financial Consulting. 15 years of payments, always the same amount. Always on the 1st of each month. Beneath the statements were photographs, Judge Harrison at my cousin's baptism, wearing the ceremonial silver bracelet reserved for her family. Harrison at my grandfather's 70th birthday, standing among the men who had keys to the basement. Harrison's signature on court documents dismissing 3 other cases my family had faced over the years. I drove straight to the district attorney's office. The secretary looked up from her desk, her fingers pausing over her keyboard. When I explained why I needed to see the DA urgently, she smiled, apologetically. "He was out of town indefinitely," she said. "Family emergency." As she reached for her appointment book, her sleeve rode up. A thin silver chain circled her wrist, delicate but unmistakable. I backed out of the office. My evidence clutched against my chest. In the parking lot, my hands shook too badly to unlock my car. A security guard approached, asking if I needed assistance. His concerned expression seemed genuine until I noticed the silver tie clip shaped like our family crest. That night, my apartment windows shattered while I was at work. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, called to report the break-in, her voice trembling as she described the glass covering my living room floor. Nothing was stolen, but someone had left a photo on my coffee table. Elena in her hospital bed taken from outside her room window. Nina called that evening sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Her parents were sending her to live with our grandparents permanently. They said she needed discipline, needed to understand her place in the family structure. She begged me to help, but the line went dead before I could respond. When I called back, the number was disconnected. Vere's family moved her across state lines within 48 hours. Her last text simply said they were transferring her father's job immediately. No forwarding address, no way to contact her. The other cousins who helped me went silent one by one. Their social media accounts deactivated, their phones disconnected. My bank called about suspicious activity on my accounts. Someone had reported potential fraud, triggering a freeze on all my assets. The investigation would take weeks, they explained, apologizing for the inconvenience. My credit card stopped working that same afternoon. Work became impossible when my supervisor called me in for a meeting. Anonymous complaints had flooded their inbox about my performance, my attitude, my reliability. The accusations were vague, but numerous enough to warrant suspension pending a full investigation. My supervisor seemed embarrassed, but insisted protocol had to be followed. With no money and no job, I called my friend Melissa. We'd known each other since college, and she'd always said her door was open. Her father, Brian, answered when I knocked. A solid man with sharp eyes who listened to my rushed explanation without interrupting. He guided me inside where Melissa wrapped me in a fierce hug. Brian Miller had been a private investigator for 30 years before retirement. He poured coffee while I spread my evidence across his dining table, his expression growing darker with each document. When I finished explaining, he pulled out a yellow legal pad and began making notes. "This isn't the first time I've seen something like this," he said quietly. "Never this organized, but the patterns are familiar." He disappeared into his home office, returning with boxes of old case files. Together, we spent hours cross-referencing names and dates. Judge Harrison's name appeared repeatedly, always dismissing cases involving prominent families, always with sealed records mentioning basement rooms or unexplained injuries. Over the next week, Brian made careful inquiries through his remaining law enforcement contacts. 12 similar cases over 2 decades, all dismissed by Harrison or judges connected to him. Each family had unexplained wealth. Each had young women who disappeared from public view. Each had properties with unusual modifications. "We need more than paper trails," Brian explained one evening. "We need the women who survived." Using his investigative skills, Brian tracked down 3 women from the dismissed cases. Sarah Chen, now 32, who escaped her family at 19. Maria Santos, 28, who testified about a locked room in her uncle's house. Jennifer Wu, 41, who tried to report her family's tradition when she was 16. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over. The women entered separately, each scanning the room with the hypervigilance I recognized in myself. Sarah spoke first, her voice steady as she described her family's discipline room. Maria showed faded scars on her ankles from restraints. Jennifer pulled out photos of other girls who hadn't survived their family's traditions. "They all protect each other," Jennifer explained. "The judges, the police, the business owners. They marry between families, bind themselves with shared secrets. Each woman had evidence, photos, documents, medical records. More importantly, they had names. 15 families across 4 states, all connected through marriages and business partnerships, all maintaining their own versions of the tradition. The silver markings identified members worn as jewelry or scarred into skin. Brian compiled our evidence into a comprehensive report. Federal crimes crossed state lines, he explained. Kidnapping, imprisonment, conspiracy. The federal courthouse operated outside local jurisdiction. We could bypass Harrison and his network entirely. The women created detailed affidavit, while Brian prepared the filing. Each page documented years of abuse, naming specific individuals, providing dates and locations. Sarah's hands trembled as she signed her statement, but her jaw was set with determination. 2 weeks before our federal hearing date, my grandmother appeared at Melissa's front door. Brian answered, keeping his body between her and the interior of the house. She smiled warmly, claiming she wanted to reconcile with her granddaughter. When Brian didn't move, she pulled out a manila envelope. $2 million, she said loudly enough for me to hear from the kitchen. A trust fund for my granddaughter if she reconsiders this foolish path. I stepped into view, meeting her cold eyes. The warm grandmother act evaporated instantly, her face twisted with disgust as I shook my head. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a hiss. You stupid girl. The tradition continues with or without you. We've already selected Nina as Elena's replacement. The ceremony is next week. My blood turned to ice. Nina was only 9 years old, the same age as Maya, but she'd helped me, made herself a target. I lunged forward, but Brian caught my arm, holding me back as my grandmother walked calmly to her car. We need a plan, Brian said firmly. If we act rashly, we lose everything. But I couldn't wait. That night, I drove to my grandparents' house, parking a block away. The basement window glowed faintly, using skills Vera had taught me before she disappeared. I picked the lock on the cellar door. The familiar smell of damp concrete filled my nostrils as I descended. Nina sat in the corner of the soundproof room, a silver anklet already locked around her ankle. She looked up with hollow eyes, already beginning the dissociation that Elena had perfected. I rushed to her, examining the lock while she whispered about the ceremony, about how her grandmother said it was an honor. Footsteps echoed overhead, multiple sets, moving with purpose. The ceremony was starting early. I pulled out my phone, starting a live stream on social media as I worked on the lock. The pics slipped in my sweaty hands while voices grew louder above us. The basement door opened just as the anklet clicked free. My father descended first, followed by my uncles and grandfather. They stopped short, seeing me crouched beside Nina. My phone continued recording, the live viewer count climbing rapidly. Step away from her, my grandfather commanded. I pulled Nina behind me, keeping the phone raised. Thousands of people are watching. They see everything. My uncle rushed forward. I dodged, but more family members poured down the stairs. Someone grabbed my wrist, trying to wrestle the phone away. Na screamed as my aunt reached for her. The room erupted into chaos, bodies pushing and shoving in the confined space. Car doors slammed outside. Brian's voice boomed from the top of the stairs, accompanied by unfamiliar ones, announcing themselves as federal marshals. The family members froze as agents and tactical gear flooded the basement, weapons drawn, but not aimed. We've been monitoring this stream, the lead marshal announced. Everyone, remain where you are. The arrests happened efficiently this time. Federal agents documented the room, photographed the ankle restraints, bagged evidence with practiced precision. They've been building their own case since our filing, Brian explained later. My live stream provided the probable cause they needed for immediate intervention. The federal trial began 6 months later without local interference. The full scope emerged. 15 families maintaining abuse traditions for generations, protected by place judges and officials throughout the system. Each family contributed to a shared fund that paid for legal protection and silence. Judge Harrison's arrest made headlines when investigators found detailed records in his home safe. 3 other judges fell with him, along with 2 police chiefs and numerous city officials. They all bore the silver markings, all participated in protecting the network. My family received sentences ranging from 20 years to life. My grandfather would die in prison, as would my father. The grandmother who selected victims for decades received 40 years. The other families faced similar fates as survivors came forward emboldened by our success. Elena spent months in therapy, slowly reclaiming pieces of herself. The younger cousins were placed with carefully vetted foster families who understood trauma. Nina lived with a family 2 states away, but we video called weekly, watching her slowly learn to smile again. I returned to school for my social work degree, focusing on family trauma and cult dynamics. My desk at the internship displayed one photo: Na and me outside the federal courthouse the day we testified, both of us finally free from the silver anklets that once marked us as future victims. The family house was seized during asset forfeit. Federal investigators spent weeks examining the property. In the subbase behind a wall my grandfather had built, they found remains. 8 women dating back to the 1960s, the ones who hadn't survived their selection. Their families had been told they'd run away. Letters arrived monthly from various prisons. My relatives called me traitor, destroyer, ungrateful child. I kept them all filed neatly in a box labeled evidence of no remorse. They served as reminders that breaking the silence hadn't just saved Na and Elena. It saved generations of girls who would never know that Soundproof Room existed. Brian helped me understand that true courage meant facing systems larger than yourself. The network had seemed invincible, protected by power and tradition. But evidence, persistence, and federal law had brought them down. Every family's secret room now stood empty, their traditions finally broken. My phone rang constantly with calls from survivors in other states, women who'd seen the trial coverage and recognized their own families' patterns. I guided them to resources, connected them with attorneys who wouldn't be bought. The network had been vast, but so was the community of survivors rising to dismantle it. Some nights, I still heard echoes of Elena's cries through imagined vents. But then I'd remember Na's laugh during our last call, or see another survivor's testimony bring down another family's tradition. The rooms were empty now. The silver anklets melted down as evidence, the cycle broken by women who refused to let it. Story 4. My brother's ex manipulated my entire family into thinking I was crazy after I found his hidden letter, proving she murdered him for insurance money. So, I connected with her past victim's family and exposed her deadly pattern. I was 15 when my brother's pregnant ex-girlfriend moved in. My brother had been gone for 3 weeks. A sewer slide that no one saw coming. One day, we were planning what movie to watch on New Year's Eve, and 6 days later, I was standing outside the funeral home crying into my comfort blanket. I was sitting at our kitchen table when Mom announced that Sarah, Connor's ex-girlfriend, would be moving in. "She's 4 months pregnant," Mom said. Like, that explained everything. It's what Connor would have wanted. Let's make her feel welcome. So, I tried to make her feel welcome. When Sarah walked in carrying just 2 suitcases, her hand on her small bump, I helped her wheel them into the house. She never called our parents Mom and Dad when Connor was alive. But suddenly, she was sobbing into my mother's arms saying, "Mom, I don't know what I'd do without you." They gave her Connor's old room immediately. At dinner, she took a seat without asking, and Dad instructed me to give her Connor's favorite mug for her decaf coffee. "I know this is hard, sweetie," Mom said when she caught me staring, "but Sarah and the baby need us." The next few months were hell. I buried the unbearable pain of grief under good grades and fake smiles. I bit my tongue when my parents transferred my entire college fund to Connor's baby's fund without a second thought. When Sarah asked to wear Connor's clothes, I said yes through gritted teeth, said it made her feel closer to him. My parents gave her everything: his car, his laptop, access to his bank accounts, all for the baby. Mom didn't notice when I started failing my classes and wearing long sleeves. She was too busy planning baby showers and prenatal appointments. Meanwhile, I was playing the same Beatles song on my Alexa for hours every day. Here Comes the Sun, Connor's favorite. Every night at dinner, I smiled while she sat in his chair and told stories about him that didn't sound right. I still started, I message games in our chat every night. Even though I knew I was just playing with myself, and my parents screamed at me for going to the cemetery and refusing to let go of the past, so I always went alone with my blanket, napping beside his grave like it was his bedroom floor. Sarah tried to give me advice like Connor would have, but Connor never gave advice. He just listened and made stupid jokes until I felt better. The breaking point came on what would have been Connor's 18th birthday. The Arctic Monkeys, Connor's favorite band, was having a concert near us, and I was planning to scream all the lyrics to his favorite songs. But when I mentioned it at breakfast, Sarah's face tightened. Actually, I've already rented the lake spot for my gender reveal party on the same day. Connor would want us celebrating new life, not dwelling on death. I begged my parents to let me go to the concert and the gender reveal party. Mom looked at me like I was insane. How could you try to ruin this for Sarah? Dad slammed his coffee mug down. Connor's baby is our future. You need to stop living in the past. You will be at the party. You will smile, and you will stop making everything about your grief. Something in me finally snapped. Connor didn't even want kids yet. He told me he wanted to wait until… Well, Connor isn't here to want anything, is he? Sarah interrupted, her perfect widow mask slipping for just a second. I knew there was no reasoning with them. So, I sighed and went to take a depression nap in my room. When I woke up at 1 a.m., I staggered over to my shelf to look at my hidden box of Connor's things, except it wasn't there. It was like it had disappeared. Concert tickets, photos, the silly friendship bracelet he made me had all vanished into thin air. I brought it up at breakfast the next day. Sarah just smiled. I donated them because you were having trouble letting go. My parents nodded approvingly. I took another 4-hour nap. The gender reveal was torture. Sarah announced the baby would be Connor Jr. Xena, and everyone cooed while I wanted to scream. That night, while following my routine of stalking his Facebook and wondering what I could have done differently, I realized something. I didn't want to forget Connor's voice, so I did what any rational teenager would do in that situation. I broke into his laptop to look for audio files he might have of him talking, but what I found made me sick. Browser history full of searches about leaving a pregnant partner, screenshots of Sarah's text to someone saved as Mike work with hearts and planning meetups. Connor had been tracking her location. He'd figured out she was lying about where she went. There were journal entries about feeling trapped, about Sarah mentioning his life insurance policy too often, about his coffee tasting weird. The last entry was dated the day before he died. The letter in our spot, the attic crawl space where we used to hide during Mom and Dad's fights. I waited until 2 a.m. and crept up there using my phone's flashlight. Behind the loose board where we used to stash candy, there was an envelope with my name on it. If you're reading this, something happened to me. I need you to know the truth about Sarah and the baby. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. Connor's handwriting stared back at me, slightly shaky, but unmistakably his. The baby isn't mine. I overheard Sarah on the phone with Marcus admitting it, and I've been recording her drugging my coffee. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle the sob, threatening to escape. Connor had known he'd been trying to protect himself, trying to gather evidence, and somehow it had all gone wrong. Footsteps creaked on the stairs below. I shoved the letter under my mattress just as my bedroom door opened without a knock. Sarah stood there in one of Connor's old hoodies, her hand resting on her bump. "Can't sleep either?" she asked sweetly. But her eyes scanned my room systematically, taking in every detail. The open closet door, the slightly displaced rug where I'd been pacing, the way I sat too stiffly on my bed. She walked in uninvited and sat down next to me, the mattress dipping under her weight. I fought the urge to shift away as she sighed dramatically. "I've been having nightmares about Connor," she said, watching my face carefully. "He told me you two had a special hiding spot where you used to play as kids." My blood turned to ice. "The attic?" She knew about the attic. I forced myself to shrug casually. "We had lots of hiding spots when we were little. Kids stuff." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. He was very specific about this one. Said you two would hide there during your parents' fights. Such a sweet memory. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Sarah's gaze followed mine to the screen, but I grabbed it before she could see. "You should get some sleep," I said, standing up. Big day tomorrow with your doctor's appointment. She didn't move. You know, grief can make people imagine things, see conspiracies where there aren't any. Your parents are worried about you. I'm fine. Are you? She stood slowly, smoothing down Connor's hoodie. Because they mentioned you've been saying some concerning things about me, about the baby. The threat hung in the air between us. I stayed silent. Sleep well? She said finally, pausing at my door. Oh, and that loose floorboard in your closet? You might want to fix that. Wouldn't want you to trip. After she left, I checked my phone with shaking hands. The text was from Jade, my best friend, using a number I didn't recognize. Got burner phone. My sister Emma saw Sarah at hospital pharmacy buying Ambient with Connor's prescription 2 days before he died. Meet me before school. I barely slept, clutching Connor's letter under my pillow. When morning came, I dragged myself downstairs to find my parents and Sarah already at the breakfast table. Perfect timing, Mom said brightly. We have something to discuss. Dad cleared his throat. Sarah brought to our attention that you've been struggling more than we realized. We've decided family therapy would be beneficial. Starting today, Sarah added, buttering her toast. I've already made the appointment with Dr. Mills. She's wonderful. We were in the same sorority. Of course she was. I have school, I protested. Already cleared it with the principal, Mom said. This is more important. At school, I'd barely made it to my locker when the intercom crackled to life. Please send the following student to the principal's office immediately. My name echoed through the hallway. Other students stared as I walked to the office, my face burning. Principal Johnson sat behind his desk, looking concerned with Ms. Rodriguez, the school counselor, beside him. Have a seat, he said gently. We received a call from your family about some concerning behavior. Ms. Rodriguez will be checking in with you daily from now on. What concerning behavior? I asked. Miss Rodriguez leaned forward. Your stepmother mentioned you've been fixated on conspiracy theories about your brother's death, making accusations. We want to help you process your grief in a healthy way, stepmother. The word made me want to scream. She's not my stepmother, I said quietly. And I'm processing fine. They exchanged looks, daily check-ins. Principal Johnson repeated, non-negotiable. After school, I rushed home to find Sarah in Connor's room. She had his journals spread across the bed, systematically tearing out pages. What are you doing? I lunged for the nearest journal. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging in hard enough to bruise. These pages might upset your parents. I'm protecting them. Those are Connor's private thoughts. Her grip tightened, and she leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume, something floral and cloying that made my stomach turn. You don't want to make me upset, she hissed. Not in my condition. I yanked my arm away, cradling my bruised wrist. Several torn pages fluttered to the floor, entries about bruises on his arms, about feeling trapped, about Sarah's violence. That evening, my phone lit up with notifications. Sarah had started a group text with our extended family, concerned about our sweet girl's mental health. She's been having delusions about me and making wild accusations. Grief manifests in strange ways. Please be patient with her during this difficult time. Uncle Pete replied immediately. I've noticed her acting strange too. Happy to help get her the help she needs. Aunt Catherine, poor thing. Losing Connor has clearly been too much. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I opened Connor's Google account on my laptop. I still remembered his password from when he'd asked me to check his email once. His location history was still there. Screenshots flew from my phone to the cloud as I documented Sarah's pharmacy visits, her patterns, her timeline. My fingers moved frantically, knowing she could change the passwords any moment. A message popped up from Marcus's girlfriend, Becca. Hey, weird thing. Sarah just showed up at our apartment demanding to talk to Marcus. He locked himself in the bedroom and won't come out. She was pounding on the door, screaming about needing to get their story straight. Thought you should know. The next day's therapy session was a nightmare. Dr. Mills, a polished woman who looked like she'd stepped out of Sarah's Instagram feed, sat across from us with a sympathetic smile. I understand you've been struggling with some jealousy issues, she said to me. It's natural to feel displaced when a new baby is coming. I'm not jealous, I said flatly. Sarah dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She's been saying I hurt Connor, that I'm lying about the baby. It's been so hard. Dr. Mills made notes. Delusional thinking can be a symptom of complicated grief. These fantasies about Sarah stem from your inability to accept Connor's choice. I noticed she'd already written something before I'd even spoken. Pulling out my phone, I pretended to check the time, but snapped a photo of her notes. Later, zooming in, I'd see she'd twisted everything. An old text to Connor saying I hate her about our English teacher was recorded as being about Sarah. After the session, Sarah created a shared family calendar on everyone's phones. Every minute of my day was scheduled for your safety, she explained to my parents. So, we know where you are if you need help. School, therapy, home, study time, supervised, family dinner, bed by 9 p.m., no deviations allowed. When Jade tried to come over that weekend, Sarah met her at the door. I'm sorry, but she's not allowed visitors right now, Sarah said sweetly. She's been having some mental health challenges, and her therapist thinks socializing with people who enable her fixations would be harmful. Enable what? Jade demanded. My parents appeared behind Sarah. Please respect our family's privacy during this difficult time, Dad said firmly. I watched from my window as Jade left, her face twisted with frustration. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Meet me at the old playground on Maple. Midnight. Bring Connor's journal photos. J. The next week was suffocating. Ms. Rodriguez dutifully checked on me daily, her concern genuine but misguided. During one session, she mentioned Sarah had called, worried about threats I'd allegedly made. I'm mandated to report these concerns, she said gently. But I want to hear your side. I never threatened anyone, I said. She showed me an email from Sarah with screenshots of texts I'd never sent, messages threatening to hurt her and the baby if she didn't leave. They were clearly fabricated, but how could I prove it? That night, I snuck out through my window and met Jade at the abandoned playground. She pulled me into a fierce hug. I believe you, she whispered about everything. I showed her the photos I'd taken of Connor's journal entries, the bruises on his arms, the dated entries about Sarah's violence. One entry made us both gasp. She threatened to make it look like I hurt her if I tried to leave, showed me bruises she gave herself, said no one would believe me. She's done this before. There was a photo paper clipped to the page. Sarah's arms covered in bruises, but the angle was all wrong for someone else to have caused them. This is evidence of blackmail. Jade breathed. We need to document everything. We spent an hour photographing every page, every entry, uploading everything to multiple cloud accounts. Jade gave me one of her burner phones to keep hidden. My mom's friend is a lawyer, she said. We're going to figure this out. Walking home, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe Connor's truth would finally come out. The next morning, Jake, one of Connor's co-workers, pulled me aside at the grocery store. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. The week before Connor died, Sarah came to our work crying about him abusing her, made a huge scene. But after she left, I was in the parking lot on break and saw her in her car. She was laughing, like really laughing, taking selfies. It was weird. Would you tell my parents that? I asked desperately. He shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to get involved with family drama. Please, Connor was your friend. He sighed. I'll think about it. I started noticing patterns in Sarah's behavior. Morning sickness only during arguments. Energy for shopping trips, but too tired to help with chores. The bump that seemed to change sizes depending on what she wore. During family dinner, she pushed her food around, claiming nausea. The baby's been so active today, she said, rubbing her stomach. But when Mom suggested she lie down, Sarah perked up immediately when her phone buzzed. Oh, Marcus is having a crisis. I should call him, for closure. She practically skipped out of the room. Later that week, Marcus's sister reached out through Jade. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over. My friend's brother died last year, she said quietly. Tom Chen. Similar circumstances. Pregnant girlfriend moved in with his family after. She left town when people started asking questions. My blood ran cold. What was her name? Jennifer Walsh. But Tom mentioned she'd changed it once before. I created an anonymous blog that night documenting everything. The timeline, the evidence, Connor's journal entries. I posted from the library computer during my supervised study time, clearing the browser history after each session. When Sarah tried to access my social media accounts, two-factor authentication blocked her. I played dumb when she complained to my parents about technical issues. Maybe the baby brain is making you forget passwords, I suggested innocently. Her mask slipped for just a second, pure rage flashing in her eyes before the sweet smile returned. A few days later, Mrs. Chen from down the street stopped me while I was taking out the trash. "I've been meaning to tell someone," she said quietly. "That night, Connor died. Sarah was at my house. Borrowed my car for an emergency around 2 a.m. Brought it back 2 hours later with mud on the tires. Thought it was strange. The pieces were falling into place. The ambient, the borrowed car, the timeline that didn't match Sarah's story. At dinner, Sarah announced she'd scheduled more family therapy. "Dr. Mills thinks intensive treatment might be necessary," she said, not looking at me. "There's a wonderful facility that specializes in grief-related psychosis." My parents exchanged worried looks. "Let's see how the outpatient therapy goes first," Mom said carefully. Sarah's hand went to her stomach. "I just worry about the stress affecting the baby. Connor would want his child to grow up in a peaceful environment." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Connor's child. The baby that wasn't even his. That night, I heard Sarah on the phone in Connor's room, her voice low and urgent. "The kid knows something. No, I can't just leave yet. The insurance money. I know what we agreed, but this family has more than don't threaten me." I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to hear more, but she must have moved away from the wall. The next morning, I woke to find my bruised wrist photographed and documented in a medical file on the kitchen table. "Evidence of self-harm," Sarah explained sadly to my parents. "Dr. Mills says it's escalating." I pulled up my sleeve. The bruises were clearly finger marks, but the photos were taken at an angle that made them look self-inflicted. "She grabbed me," I protested when I tried to save Connor's journals. "Sweetheart," Mom said gently. Sarah showed us the security footage from the hallway. "You were alone when you went into Connor's room." "What security footage?" "We don't have cameras inside," Dad said. "The new system Sarah installed for safety." I felt the walls closing in. She was rewriting reality, and everyone believed her version, but Connor's letter was still hidden under my mattress. His truth was still there, waiting. And somewhere out there, Tom Chen's family had their own questions about a woman who might have been Jennifer Walsh before she became Sarah. The battle for Connor's truth was just beginning. I recognized Sarah's pattern immediately. Public concern, private threats, isolation tactics, exactly what Connor's journal had described. The realization made my skin crawl as I watched her performance at breakfast, dabbing at fake tears while explaining to my parents how worried she was about my deteriorating mental state. Emma, the hospital nurse, who was Jade's sister, texted me during lunch period. She'd checked the pharmacy records and confirmed Sarah had picked up Connor's ambient prescription the day he died. Security footage showed her leaving with a full bottle, enough to kill someone if mixed with alcohol. The timestamp matched perfectly with Mrs. Chen's account of Sarah borrowing her car that night. Sarah must have sensed the walls closing in because her next move was calculated. She showed up at Jade's mother's house with a box of homemade cookies and tears streaming down her face. Jade watched from her bedroom window as Sarah tried to convince her mother that I was having a mental breakdown, that Jade was enabling dangerous delusions, but Jade had already warned her mother about Sarah's manipulation tactics. Her mother politely but firmly told Sarah that she trusted her daughter's judgment and asked her to leave. That small victory gave me hope, but I knew I needed to protect the evidence. I carefully removed Connor's letter from under my mattress and photographed every word with Jade's burner phone. The original went into a tampon box in my bathroom, the one place Sarah wouldn't search. I uploaded the photos to 3 different cloud accounts, each with different passwords, then cleared the phone's history. My parents decided to take me to the police station for what they called a wellness check. They explained to the officer that they were concerned about my mental health, that I'd been making accusations about Sarah. The officer listened patiently, but explained that without evidence of immediate danger to myself or others, there was nothing he could do. I sat there silently, knowing that speaking up would only make me look more unstable. Connor's gaming friend, Derek, had been following my anonymous blog. He sent a private message offering to share chat logs from Connor's final days. Connor had confided in him about feeling scared, about Sarah's mood swings, about finding bruises on his arms he couldn't explain. Derek had screenshots of everything, including Connor's message the night before he died, saying he was going to leave Sarah and stay with a friend. Marcus's sister showed me something that made my blood run cold. She'd found Sarah's old social media profiles under the name Jennifer Walsh. The photos were definitely her, just with different colored hair. There were posts about her boyfriend Tom, photos of them together, and then suddenly nothing. The account went dark right around the time Tom died from an accidental OD. She also had a newspaper clipping about Tom's death. The article mentioned he'd recently increased his life insurance policy and that his girlfriend was pregnant. Sound familiar? The parallels were too obvious to ignore. Same substances, same circumstances, same pattern of moving in with the grieving family. When my parents confronted me about the blog posts that were starting to circulate among Connor's friends, I stayed calm. I showed them one specific entry from Connor's journal where he wrote about being scared, about Sarah mentioning his life insurance policy during arguments, about feeling like he couldn't leave. Dad's face changed as he read Connor's familiar handwriting describing his fear. Sarah's response was swift. She announced she was moving up the wedding to my father. She claimed it would honor Connor's memory and provide stability for the baby. The ceremony would be small, family only, in just 2 weeks. Once she had legal rights as Dad's wife, she'd have access to everything: the house, the bank accounts, the life insurance policies on our entire family. Jake finally worked up the courage to tell my parents what he'd witnessed. He described Sarah's performance at Connor's workplace, how she'd sobbed about abuse in front of everyone, then laughed and took selfies in her car afterward. He showed them security footage from the parking lot that backed up his story. Mom's face went pale as she watched Sarah's transformation from victim to victor in the span of minutes. Sarah's mask started slipping more frequently. When I refused to be in the wedding party, she cornered me in the hallway and snarled that no one had believed Connor either. The words escaped before she could stop them, an admission that she'd done this before. She quickly covered by claiming she meant no one believed Connor about wanting to wait to have kids, but we both knew what she'd really meant. Mom began asking questions. Why did Sarah need access to Connor's life insurance so urgently? Why was she pushing for such a quick wedding? Why did her stories about Connor keep changing? She pulled me aside one evening and asked about my concerns. For the first time in months, she actually listened. Marcus finally agreed to meet with me. He was terrified of Sarah, but knew he needed to tell the truth. He revealed that Sarah had admitted during their affair that she was already pregnant when she met Connor. She'd targeted him specifically because she knew about his family's money, about the life insurance policy his parents had taken out. Marcus had text messages proving everything, including Sarah begging him to run away with her the night before Connor died. Dad started paying attention to details he'd previously ignored. Sarah's stories about Connor didn't match the son he'd known for 17 years. Connor supposedly told her things he'd never mentioned to his family, had opinions that contradicted everything Dad knew about him. The more Dad thought about it, the less sense it made. Security footage from our neighbor's doorbell camera became the smoking GN. It showed Sarah leaving our house at 2 a.m. the night Connor died, just as Mrs. Chen had said. She returned at 4 a.m. Plenty of time to have driven to Connor's apartment and back. Her alibi that she'd been asleep in the guest room all night was completely destroyed. Jade risked being grounded to maintain our communication. She snuck me a second burner phone when the first one's battery started dying, kept copies of all the evidence on flash drives hidden around her room, and coordinated with the growing network of people who were starting to see through Sarah's lies. Mrs. Chen offered to let me study at her house in the afternoons. It became my safe haven where I could meet with allies, plan our next moves, and work on documenting the truth without Sarah's surveillance. Mrs. Chen had never liked Sarah, had always found her tears too convenient, and her grief too performative. Despite having numerous opportunities to plant false evidence or manipulate the situation in my favor, I refused. I wanted Connor's truth to come out, but I wanted it to come out honestly. Every piece of evidence was real, every witness statement genuine. I wouldn't stoop to Sarah's level of deception. During one family dinner, Sarah contradicted herself about the last time she'd seen Connor. First, she said it was the morning he died, then changed it to 2 days before, then back to that morning. My parents exchanged worried glances across the table. The cracks in her story were becoming impossible to ignore. Marcus agreed to meet me secretly at a diner 3 towns over. He was shaking as he told me everything. Sarah had been with him the night before Connor died, begging him to leave town with her. She'd said Connor was getting suspicious, that her plan was falling apart. She'd cried about being trapped, about needing money to start over. Marcus had refused to help her, and she'd left in a rage. Sarah's carefully maintained image began cracking in public. Jake, Mrs. Chen, and Emma started comparing notes at the grocery store, their hushed conversations drawing attention. Other neighbors mentioned strange things they'd noticed. Sarah taking long phone calls in her car, meeting with unknown men at odd hours. The way she'd smile when she thought no one was looking. A clear pattern emerged through everyone's observations. Sarah targeted young men with life insurance policies and families with money. She claimed abuse when questioned, used pregnancy to gain sympathy, and always positioned herself as the victim. The same story, different families, different names. Jade's family offered to pay for a lawyer consultation. Her mother had become invested in helping after Sarah's attempted manipulation. The lawyer listened to our evidence and said that while criminal charges would be difficult without more proof, the family could certainly take civil action to protect their assets. My anonymous blog gained traction among Connor's friends. They started sharing their own strange encounters with Sarah. How she'd pumped them for information about Connor's finances, how she'd tried to isolate him from his support system, how different Connor had seemed in his final weeks. The comment section became a repository of small details that painted a damning picture. When confronted about timeline inconsistencies during dinner, Sarah lost control for just a moment. She blurted out that Connor was going to leave her with nothing, then quickly blamed it on pregnancy hormones. But the damage was done. My parents heard the anger in her voice, saw the calculation in her eyes. My parents finally apologized for not listening to me sooner. Mom admitted she'd suspected something was off, but wanted so badly to believe in the baby, in having a piece of Connor still with them. She'd chosen the comfortable lie over the difficult truth. And now she was seeing the cost of that choice. Sarah realized she was losing control. I watched from my window as she paced in the backyard, making frantic phone calls to unknown numbers. She started packing valuable items from around the house into boxes in her room. Connor's watch, Mom's jewelry that had been put away for safekeeping, electronics that could be easily sold. Marcus's sister confirmed what we'd suspected. Tom Chen was her friend's brother, and the pattern was identical. Same substances, same staged sewers lied, same pregnant girlfriend who disappeared when questions got too uncomfortable. 2 deaths, 2 families destroyed, and Sarah had almost gotten away with it twice. I warned Marcus that he might be Sarah's next target if she couldn't salvage her current situation. He agreed to record any conversations with her going forward. Within days, she called him crying, begging for help, saying the family had turned against her. He recorded everything, including her admission that she needed money to disappear. Connor's friends created a group chat to share evidence. Jake's security footage, Emma's pharmacy records, Mrs. Machen's testimony, Derek's chat logs, it all painted a picture of a woman who had systematically planned Connor's murder. The timeline was damning when laid out sequentially. Sarah's attempts to turn the family against me backfired spectacularly. My parents discovered she'd been intercepting mail, hiding bills, and routing Connor's mail to a P.O. box she controlled. She'd been slowly draining his accounts, small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts, but added up over time. The real smoking GN came when Dad found Connor's sewer-lied note in Sarah's jewelry box. She'd forgotten to destroy it, probably keeping it as insurance. But the handwriting was wrong. It used phrases from Connor's journals, but lacked his natural flow. Dad knew his son's handwriting better than anyone, and this wasn't it. Extended family members started reaching out to apologize. Uncle Pete admitted Sarah had been feeding him lies about my mental health for months, playing on his concern to build a network of people who would support her version of events. He felt sick when he realized how he'd been manipulated. Tom's family had hired a private investigator after his death. They shared the report with us, and the similarities were undeniable. Same pattern of isolation, same financial exploitation, same convenient sewers after increasing life insurance. The investigator had tracked Jennifer Walsh's movements after Tom's death. She disappeared for 6 months before emerging as Sarah. Sarah's wedding planning became increasingly desperate. She needed legal rights before the truth fully emerged. She booked venues, ordered flowers, sent invitations, all while maintaining the facade of the grieving girlfriend, honoring Connor's memory. But her rush to lock down legal status was transparent. During wedding dress shopping, Mom saw Sarah's true nature emerge. When the sales clerk made a minor mistake, Sarah erupted in rage, making a scene about incompetent service and threatening to destroy the shop's reputation online. The mask had slipped completely, revealing the calculating predator beneath. I realized the full scope of Sarah's plan. If she married Dad, she'd have access to everything. The house, the bank accounts, the life insurance policies on our entire family. We'd all become potential targets. The woman who'd called twice wouldn't hesitate to call again if it meant financial gain. Instead of confronting Sarah with aggression, I presented the evidence to my parents calmly and methodically. I let the facts speak for themselves, the timeline, the witnesses, the documentation. There was no emotion in my presentation, just truth laid bare. It was more powerful than any accusation. One by one, family members began refusing to attend the rushed wedding. They cited concerns about timing, the need to honor Connor's memory properly, discomfort with the circumstances. Sarah watched her carefully constructed plan crumble as her support system evaporated. The documented evidence became undeniable. Sarah's own words and recorded conversations with Marcus damned her. She'd admitted to choosing Connor because his family had money and he was weak enough to control. She'd laughed about how easy it was to manipulate grieving families. She'd bragged about her previous success with Tom. My parents told Sarah the wedding was postponed indefinitely. She maintained her sweet facade, but I saw rage flash in her eyes. She knew the game was almost over, but she wasn't giving up yet. Predators like Sarah always had one more move to play. Sarah made a last desperate manipulation attempt. She claimed she was having complications with the pregnancy, needed immediate financial help for medical care. She produced fake hospital bills, staged phone calls with doctors, even wore a larger prosthetic bump to seem further along. Dad asked for proof of the pregnancy complications, real documentation from real doctors. Sarah stalled, made excuses, claimed the hospital was slow with paperwork, but she couldn't produce anything because there were no complications with a pregnancy that didn't exist with Connor's child. Then Sarah's ex-boyfriend from before Connor showed up at our house. He demanded she return the money she'd stolen from him, revealed he was the baby's actual father. He had paternity test results, bank statements showing the theft, proof that Sarah had been planning this con for over a year. The family rallied around me for the first time since Connor's death. Mom apologized for choosing the comfortable lie over the difficult truth about Connor. She'd wanted so badly to believe in the baby, in having a piece of her son still with them, that she'd ignored every red flag. Tom's mother reached out directly. She offered to share their investigation files, promised to support any legal action we chose to take. She'd been waiting 2 years for another family to see through the woman who'd called her son. Finally, she had allies in seeking justice. I presented the complete timeline to a family meeting. 2 victims, same method, same exploitation of grieving families. The pattern was undeniable when laid out clearly. Sarah had refined her technique with each victim, but the core elements remained consistent. Marcus provided the final piece of evidence, a recording of Sarah admitting she'd chosen Connor because his family had money and he was weak enough to control. She'd laughed about how easy it was to manipulate grieving families, how profitable tragedy could be if you played it right. Mrs. Chen testified to our family that Sarah had specifically asked to borrow her car to visit Connor that night, claiming she needed to talk to him about the baby. The car was returned hours later with mud on the tires from the dirt road leading to Connor's apartment complex. Mrs. Chen had kept quiet out of respect for our grieving family, but now she understood the significance of that detail. The complete evidence file painted a devastating picture. Sarah's pattern stretched back at least 2 years, with 2 confirmed deaths, and Marcus as a potential third victim if her current plan had failed. The methodology was consistent. Target vulnerable young men with financial assets, claim pregnancy, exploit grieving families, then disappear when questions arose. Connor's USB drive was exactly where his letter said it would be, hidden in the spare tire compartment of his car. The files contained audio recordings of Sarah drugging his coffee, photos of bruises she'd inflicted on him, and a detailed timeline of her abuse. He'd been building a case to protect himself, documenting everything meticulously. The final recording was dated the night before he died. Sarah's voice clear as she threatened to claim he'd assaulted her if he tried to leave. Our family gathered in the living room for what would be the final confrontation. Dad served Sarah a formal eviction notice with Uncle Pete standing as witness. The document gave her 24 hours to vacate the premises. Sarah's face cycled through emotions, shock, rage, then calculated tears as she tried one last manipulation. She pulled out her phone, threatening to call the police, and claimed Dad had assaulted her. Her fingers hovered over the emergency number as she described the story she'd tell, how he'd grabbed her, pushed her, threatened the baby, the same tactics she'd used on Connor and Tom. My phone chose that exact moment to die. The recording of Sarah's confession to Marcus was on it, the one piece of evidence that could immediately disprove her claims. The family wavered, uncertainty creeping back in as Sarah's tears intensified. She clutched her stomach, wailing about stress on the baby, about Connor's family turning against his child. Mom stepped forward, her face set with determination. She pointed at Sarah's midsection, where the pregnancy bump had mysteriously vanished since yesterday. The prosthetic padding Sarah had been wearing was gone, forgotten in her panic. The supposedly 7-month pregnant woman had a completely flat stomach. While the family argued about next steps, I slipped out the back door and ran to Jade's house. My legs burned as I sprinted through familiar streets, knowing every second counted. Jade met me at the door with her laptop already open, the cloud backup of evidence ready. Her mother was on the phone with Tom's family, coordinating the final pieces. Tom's mother had been waiting for this moment. She sent our entire family email list, a comprehensive file, the private investigator's report documenting Sarah's identity changes, financial records showing Tom's drained accounts, witness statements from his friends about Sarah's behavior before his death. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Sarah returned from the police station 2 hours later to find our entire family assembled in the living room, plus Tom's mother, who'd driven 3 hours to be there. The room was silent as she walked in, her confidence faltering as she recognized the woman whose son she'd called. Each person presented their evidence methodically. Jake showed the security footage of her laughing after her performance at Connor's work. Emma presented the pharmacy records and timeline of the ambient purchase. Marcus's recorded confession played from multiple phones simultaneously, his voice shaking as he described Sarah's manipulation. Mrs. Chen detailed the borrowed car, the timeline that placed Sarah at Connor's apartment when he died. The final revelation came from Tom's mother. Sarah hadn't just called Tom for his insurance money. She'd only received a partial payout because the insurance company had been suspicious of the circumstances. She'd needed another victim, another family to exploit, which led her to Connor. The pattern would have continued with Marcus or someone else if we hadn't stopped her. Connor's friend, who worked at a law firm, arrived with a document that changed everything. Connor had updated his will a week before his death, leaving everything to me instead of Sarah. He'd known something might happen, had taken steps to protect his assets from her. The document was properly witnessed and notarized, completely legal and binding. The choice fell to me. Pursue criminal charges that would mean a long, traumatic trial, or let Sarah leave with the promise that we had enough evidence to bury her if she ever contacted our family again. I looked at my parents' exhausted faces, at Tom's mother who'd been fighting this battle for 2 years, at all the people who'd risked their relationships to help expose the truth. I chose to document everything with the police, but asked them to prioritize our family's healing over a prolonged legal battle. The detective took our statements, collected the evidence, and assured us they'd be investigating both deaths. Tom's case would be reopened with this new information. Justice might be slow, but it would come. Sarah packed her belongings under the watchful eyes of our entire family. She tried one final manipulation, claiming she really was pregnant, and we were throwing out a pregnant woman. No one even responded. The boy who cried wolf had exhausted all credibility. Her tears were met with stony silence when she attempted to take Connor's laptop, claiming it contained photos of their relationship. Dad physically stepped between her and Connor's room. He pulled out his phone, ready to call the police himself if she didn't leave immediately. Sarah's mask finally dropped completely, her face twisting with rage. She turned to Mom, trying to appeal to maternal instinct, sobbing about being alone and pregnant. Mom stood firm beside Dad, their united front unshakable. Even Mom, who'd wanted so desperately to believe in Connor's baby, saw through the manipulation now. The evidence was too overwhelming, the lies too numerous. The police arrived to escort Sarah off the property after she refused to leave voluntarily. 2 officers stood by as she loaded her car, ensuring she only took her personal belongings. They served her with a no-contact order. If she came within 500 FT of any family member, she'd be arrested immediately. As her car pulled away, Sarah's true nature showed through the driver's window. She looked directly at me, her expression cold and calculating. Her lips moved clearly enough for me to read them. Connor was weak, just like you. Then she was gone, taillights disappearing down the street. Our family immediately changed every lock in the house, updated all security codes, and installed a comprehensive camera system. We created a safety plan in case Sarah attempted to return for revenge. The security company noted our address for priority response. We weren't taking any chances. The next weeks were a blur of activity. I started seeing a legitimate grief counselor, one with no connection to Sarah or her network. The therapist helped me process not just Connor's death, but the months of psychological torture that followed. Slowly, I began to separate my grief for my brother from the trauma Sarah had inflicted. Connor's real last message was in a hidden file on the USB drive. A video recorded the week before he died, showing his bruised arms and exhausted face, but his message was clear and strong. He looked directly into the camera and spoke to me, telling me to trust myself, that I was stronger than I knew. He'd known I'd be the one to find the truth. 6 months later, our family gathered at the lake Connor had loved. This time it was for a proper memorial, not Sarah's twisted gender reveal. His real friends were there, the ones who'd helped expose the truth. Tom's family stood with us. 2 families united by tragedy, but also by justice. I spoke about the real Connor, the brother who made stupid jokes when I was sad, who listened without judging, who hid candy in our secret spot during our parents' fights. Not the false version Sarah had created, but the person we'd actually lost. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it was clean now, not poisoned by lies. Sarah faced investigation in both deaths. The detective called periodically with updates. They'd found more evidence, other families who'd had suspicious encounters with her under different names. The investigation was expanding, but I tried not to focus on it. Justice was important, but healing was more important. My college fund was restored from Connor's estate. The money Sarah had manipulated from my parents was slowly recovered through insurance claims and legal processes. It wouldn't bring Connor back, but at least his final wishes were being honored. He'd wanted me to go to college, to have the future he wouldn't get to see. The house felt different now. Connor's room remained closed most days, but sometimes I'd go in and sit with his things, the journals Sarah hadn't managed to destroy, his gaming setup, the silly friendship bracelet I'd found hidden in his desk drawer. The pain of missing him was constant, but no longer complicated by doubt or manipulation. I returned to school with my head held high. The whispers about my mental health crisis faded as the truth spread through the community. Ms. Rodriguez apologized for not seeing through Sarah's lies, for letting the system be used against me. Principal Johnson removed all the documentation Sarah had submitted from my record. Jade remained my fiercest ally through everything. Her family had essentially adopted me during the worst months, providing safe harbor when my own home became a battlefield. Our friendship had been tested by Sarah's manipulations, but emerged stronger. She'd believed me when no one else would. The extended family slowly rebuilt trust. Uncle Pete became one of my strongest supporters, furious at how he'd been manipulated into enabling Sarah's abuse. Aunt Catherine sent long letters apologizing for not questioning Sarah's narrative. The family WhatsApp group, once poisoned by Sarah's lies, became a source of support again. Marcus struggled with guilt over his role in everything. He'd been another of Sarah's victims, manipulated and used, but he still felt responsible for not speaking up sooner. He started attending the same grief support group, working through his own trauma. His testimony had been crucial in exposing Sarah, and I made sure he knew how grateful we were. Jake from Connor's work became a regular visitor. He'd carry guilt, too, about not speaking up when Connor was alive, but I reminded him that Sarah had fooled everyone. He shared stories about Connor at work, funny moments, and inside jokes I'd never heard. It helped to know Connor had been happy sometimes, even near the end. Mrs. Chen adopted me as an honorary grandchild. She'd check on me daily, bringing food and sitting quietly when words weren't needed. Her house remained a refuge, a place where I could exist without the weight of everything that had happened. She'd lost her husband young and understood grief in a way that didn't require explanation. The blog I'd created to document evidence transformed into something different. Other families reached out, sharing their own experiences with people like Sarah, not for publicity or attention, but for connection and validation. We created a private support network, sharing resources and warning signs. If we could prevent even one family from experiencing what we had, Connor's death wouldn't be entirely meaningless. Mom and Dad slowly rebuilt their relationship with me. The guilt they carried for not believing me for enabling Sarah's abuse was immense. Family therapy with a legitimate therapist this time helped us navigate the complicated emotions. They'd been victims too, manipulated by a master predator, but that didn't erase the harm caused by their disbelief. Connor's birthday came and went. This time, I attended the Arctic Monkeys concert as planned, screaming the lyrics to his favorite songs. Jade came with me, and we ugly cried through the entire set list. It wasn't the celebration I'd originally planned with Connor, but it honored him in a way Sarah's gender reveal never could have. The investigation into Sarah continued in the background. Detective Morrison called occasionally with updates. They'd connected her to at least 3 suspicious deaths across different states. She'd been doing this for years, perfecting her technique with each victim. The full scope might never be known, but at least she'd been stopped. I graduated high school with honors, my grades recovering once the psychological warfare ended. The college acceptance letters felt bittersweet. Connor should have been helping me choose, teasing me about my safety schools. Instead, I made the decision with his memory as my guide, choosing the engineering program he'd always said I'd excel in. The night before I left for college, I visited Connor's grave one last time, not with my comfort blanket and depression naps, but standing strong. I told him about everything, how we'd exposed Sarah, how the family had healed, how his preparation had saved us all. I promised to live the life he'd wanted for me, to be happy despite the grief. Tom's mother sent a final message as I packed for college. Sarah had been arrested in another state under yet another name, caught in the middle of targeting a new victim. This time, she wouldn't escape justice. The combined evidence from our families and others she'd targeted would ensure she never destroyed another family. My dorm room felt strange at first, too quiet without the constant chaos of the past year. But as I unpacked, I found Connor's friendship bracelet tucked into my suitcase with a note from Mom. She'd saved it from the box Sarah had tried to donate, keeping it safe until I was ready. I wore it every day after that, a reminder of the brother who'd loved me enough to protect me even after death. The other students had no idea about my story, and I preferred it that way. I wasn't the girl whose brother died or the teen who'd fought a psychopath. I was just another freshman figuring out college life. The anonymity felt like freedom after months of being watched and judged. Late at night, when the grief hit hardest, I'd replay Connor's video message. His faith in my strength had been justified. I'd fought for his truth when everyone doubted me. Exposed a killer when the world believed her tears. He'd known I could do it, had trusted me with his final secret. That trust had saved our family. The truth had finally surfaced, just as Connor knew it.